Hey, welcome to Picture This Film Reviews. My name is Matt, and with me is, of course,
Movie Man Dan.
Movie Man Dan. Uh, Today we are here to talk about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We promised this review a couple weeks ago. We did hope to bring it to you last week as soon as the movie dropped. However, Mr. Dan has been under the weather, so we've had a slight delay on recording, which is all fine. We're just glad to have Dan back with us. Dan, how are you feeling?
Still have a lingering cough, so if I do have a little bit that pops up during the episode, please forgive me. But overall, really excited to be back here with you guys to talk about Tom Cruise film. I know last week, well, actually a few days ago today, maybe Matt dropped a new video ranking Tom Cruise's movies on
I
a
did.
tier list. So if you haven't already gone to check that out, go ahead and do so. So already have a little bit of an idea what we'll be talking about today. I know Matt was very hush hush on this movie, in particular for this episode. So let's do the impossible and dissect this movie. What do you got going on, Matt?
Sure. Um, Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, obviously, supposedly supposed to be the final Mission Impossible film, directed once again by Christopher McQuarrie, who I believe came in. I think it was Rogue Nation, which was number five. I think is it was the first film that he did. Um, but essentially, I'm not going to read all that. I was going to read a synopsis. I'm not going to read all that. It's Mission Impossible, guys. Ethan Hunt, Tom Cruise, saving the world. You know the drill. Unless you don't know the drill, in which case this movie gives you plenty of flashbacks. But we'll get to that in a moment. Dan, when was the last Mission Impossible movie you watched before this one?
Geez, honestly, I wouldn't even be able to tell you the title 100%. It's been years since I've seen a Mission Impossible movie, and the really the only reason I ended up going to watch it was because I knew it was the end of a franchise. It started in 1996. Tom Cruise was almost my age when he started getting into this. I think he was like 34 years old. So I wanted to kind of go to the movie theaters, go see how it panned out, and really potentially close the door on a long legacy of film and go see the send off. So how about you, Matt? I know it sounded like you're pretty much up to date based on the reviews that I was watching before this video. So um, what were your thoughts, I guess, on the last few movies of the franchise? Because what I remember, the first movie was excellent. Like that was next level. I remember that one vividly. It seemed like the stories, to me at least, started devolving a little bit as time went on. I mean, they're all action films. They're all very much, the presence of Tom Cruise and a lot of stuff going on and Mission being impossible. But I mean, what were your overall thoughts? If you want to recap a little bit from a previous episode, what did you have here?
So, in my opinion, the Mission Impossible franchise started out, of course, 96. So we're just shy of 30 years of this. And of the Tom Cruise movies. We should, I guess, mention that Mission Impossible was a TV
Like
series
the
way
'60s,
back in
right?
the day. Yeah. So, but these films, Brian De Palma, uh, famous director, directed the first film with Tom Cruise. It was the first film that Tom Cruise served as a producer on, and has since gone on to produce every single one. Um, and so Mission Impossible 1, it's where it started. It's classic. You talked about it. We're not going to go too deep in that. Mission Impossible 2 is often ranked as the worst one. And while it's not a trash movie, it's not a good movie. John Woo directs it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and it sounds like you are for the folks who are kind of like me and either don't remember the exact film titles. What exactly makes it a not quite trash movie?
So John Woo directs it. And if you know anything about John Woo, everything is very slow mo. There is about 984 slow motion action sequences in this. Tom Cruise has got the longer hair, which he has in several. The hair comes and goes throughout the franchise. They even make a joke about it in this newest one. I believe one of the characters says, "Oh, you look good with longer hair," um, and it's just the story is weaker. It feels like a different Ethan Hunt. than what we saw in the first film. Then we're going to bring it to Mission Impossible 3. 6 years later goes by. For all we thought, that the word franchise wasn't a thing really then. I mean, it was, but it wasn't. So, 6 years after 2000, when Mission Impossible 2 came out, they're doing another one. So you would almost say that Mission Impossible 2 killed the franchise, but there was no franchise. It was just a sequel. Back when movies just sometimes got sequels. Now number three comes, and now we've got sort of what might be a franchise. And a lot of people online don't like three. I talked about this in my Tom Cruise movie ranking. I actually enjoy three. I think it's where the series starts to pick up. And it's not the best Mission Impossible film. In fact, it is more toward the bottom, but that's just because all the others kept getting better. Um, and of course, Philip Seymour Hoffman was incredible as the villain. I still think Philip Seymour Hoffman is the best Mission Impossible villain in the whole series.
And
Um,
R.I.P. to him, phenomenal actor overall.
Yeah, indeed. So I'm not going to go to each one by one, but those are like the first three. And then, unlike any other series of movies where usually the more sequels, the worse they get, some reason, somehow, some way, these movies got significantly better each and every one. Four was tremendous over three. Five was great. Six, Fallout, is my personal favorite. I think a lot of people's personal favorite. It is Mission Impossible at its very best. And then, of course, we had Dead Reckoning a couple years ago, which was the prelude to this film, which I don't think was as good as Fallout, but it was still right there. So that brings us to Final Reckoning, which I know I had a high hopes on. I know a lot of people had high hopes on this film. So I say all that to say my initial thoughts after coming out of the theater was I was disappointed. Not because I don't think it's a bad movie, but I just had a lot of problems with the movie. With that said, the final, let's say, hour and a half is where this movie really picks up. And the whole final and the whole ending, the whole last hour and a half is a fantastic movie. One of the best things to come out of the Mission Impossible franchise. Um, Dan, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Guess we're talking about initial thoughts of the movie. Just a quick highlight of what I'll be discussing. Tom Cruise is a movie star. He has all the trappings. Like back in the day, if you wanted to go see a John Wayne movie, you knew you're going to be seeing Western type movie. I know he started getting into some other things toward the end of his career, but overall, that's what he was known for. Tom Cruise is an action star. As we progress, the nature of Hollywood's changing a lot, and we have more character actors. Overall, when you go to a Mission Impossible movie, you know what you're in for. You're going to see explosions, you're going to see gunfights, you're going to see fighting, you're going to see all these amazing stunts that Tom Cruise does himself. And this film was not short on those, I will say. But the standouts for me, the story, it was okay, it was solid. And as far as the acting itself, it's what you expect out of an action movie. It wasn't anything earth shattering or earth breaking, bending. But the cinematography on this was amazing, especially to keep up with all the stunts that Tom Cruise did. And we'll definitely get into that, I think, a little bit. But I didn't really know what to expect. It's been several years since I've gone to see a Mission Impossible movie. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to follow what was going on. I know that before I went to the movie theater, you said, Dan, there are going to be a lot of flashbacks that might help you out. It did. I could see potentially how that might hurt the movie for some viewers because of how many flashbacks there were. But for me, not following the entire story, it definitely did help put me in the moment. Whereas, unlike in Marvel, for instance, you go see a movie, if you didn't watch a movie or you didn't see an episode of something, you're lost. So I do give them props for that. I know it probably set the pacing of the movie back, which I'm sure you will also talk about. Sound like you're alluding to. So those would be my key points. So kicking it back over to you, Matt. What were the standouts for you as I ramp up our cough? I'm going to mute myself for. What were the key points for you on this film? What really stood out?
So obviously the standout is the action sequences. There's this whole moment, not moment. There's this whole like maybe 20-minute scene of Tom Cruise having to dive underwater, and he's in this suit, and they make it explicitly known that he's only got a certain amount of time to be in this suit before he runs out of air, and he can only go do so much. And so like there's this whole intense dive underwater sequence with Tom Cruise, plus the whole
Oh, by
ending.
by the way, just before you go any further, spoilers, spoilers, spoilers,
Oh,
spoilers, spoilers.
yes, absolutely. So the ending with the plane, we had I think a lot of us had seen like the behind the scenes in the news or the press for this of like him like hanging on to it's like an old style type plane. So we knew that he was going to be flying through the air, but I don't think any of us were prepared for what actually transpires during this scene. Just knowing that Tom Cruise does his own stunts and like I don't know as far as how high up in the air they actually went for these scenes, but the man is hanging off of a plane in the air and then proceeds to not only be hanging off the plane in the air, get into the plane, and then get out of that plane and into the other guy's plane. So it's very like intense and it's very like, oh my gosh. And then the whole time that I was watching, I was thinking, this man is nuts. And you said it in the beginning, Tom Cruise is a star. He is a movie star. You have lots of actors, but Tom Cruise, I think, is in fact the last movie star of our time. Like when people used to be movie stars back in the 50s and the 60s and that golden age era of Hollywood, that doesn't exist anymore. But I think the closest thing we have to that is Tom Cruise, in my opinion. Um, you know a little bit about his personal life, but at the same time, you don't. He's very private, aside from he's an actor, he's a movie star. He puts out these movies, and we go see them. Everyone flocks to see them. Tom Cruise is still a draw all these years later. Crowds come, um, and you put his name on something, it's more or less it's gonna be a success, and that's that not everyone has that kind of star power these days. So that's good job, Mr. Cruz. And I was talking about his private life. He just did some sort of interview, I think on the red carpet or something. Someone it was right before maybe it wasn't because Father's Day is coming up. So I think someone asked him about Father's Day, what would his perfect Father's Day look like? And he kept it very professional and said, making a movie. And so like and that's I don't know that many fathers would want to spend their Father's Day on set making a movie, but if that whether he really does want to do that or whether that's just what he said, because he doesn't want to get into his personal life, that's all the same. He's just a star, and he's one that I've really come to appreciate over the years. Growing up, he was not one that really was ever on my radar. And then really around the time Collateral came out in the early 2000s is when I was like, oh, he's phenomenal. Um, Dan, how about some of the things? Did you have any problems with this movie? And I'll get into mine in a minute, but just to kick it back to you, were there any things that you did not like about this movie?
Well, the probably the a couple points that stuck out to me, even not having been following this franchise as religiously as you were. Obviously, one, the pacing in the first part of the movie that you talked about, it took forever. It felt to ramp up to the main story. And then you're thinking about the time in the back of your mind. This movie is almost 3 hours long. Like, what is going to happen? I understand a lot of that was to build the backstory and to get you back in touch with the characters and all this going on. The other part is the killing off of Luther. I thought was
Yeah,
probably a little unnecessary, and they did tie him back in toward the end of the film, but we see him, he's sick in a hospital like bed. We're not 100% sure what exactly sickness he has. He's just kind of sick, right? Did they
yeah.
ever get into that? Like
No.
why?
And he wasn't sick in the previous film. So we don't, it was never explained. He's just sick.
So it's just strange. And I do. It's kind of a new age thing. I think having your villain a computer AI robot, but I think it makes it harder to really like despise a character. And I think they had some other minor villains in here that were trying to take control of the AI entity, the entity as it's called, to kind of build that. But overall, those were the things that really stuck out most to me as negative points. And just to circle back, I thought you were going to talk about it when you're talking about the dive scene. I actually think my favorite part of this film was, again, when he was underwater, but when he's entered into the submarine and the
Mhm.
sub starts to spin, and then
Oh
the
gosh.
warheads or the torpedoes are starting to like shift around and fall around and pin him in. And I'm like, how is this dude going to get out of here? And um, so they talk about Mission Impossible movies, building the whole sense of being impossible and this, that, and the other. And it's very like frustrating when you have such a tense moment and then the pacing just does not feel off, or it does feel off to a lot of these, but I think they did a really good job there. They also did a good job what you were talking about with the plane scenes, jumping from plane to plane. So overall, enjoyable. I think that the good outweighed the bad to me. But it sounded like you might have some hard points on this as well, Matt. So what issues did you have with the film that we're reviewing today?
My biggest issue, and we alluded to it, but my biggest issue, and it's funny because I was curious how it would play for someone who hadn't seen a lot of the previous films versus someone who had, how it worked. Did it work better for someone like that versus someone like me? So my biggest issue is that the first hour to almost hour and a half of this film is a previously on Mission Impossible. Like that's kind of what it is. I mean, there's very little movement forward of the story in that first half. For the whole first half of the movie is essentially flashbacks.
It is kind of odd that for the very final film of the final film of the franchise, that it almost seems like we're allowing room for more fans to come into the franchise. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Yeah, it does seem crazy. And I know I'm also the one that was just complaining a few weeks back about how if you don't watch one Marvel movie, you get completely lost. And, you know, so I know I'm kind of going completely against that because Marvel doesn't do flashbacks. But at the same time, Marvel spits out what? So much content, a couple movies a year at least. Mission Impossible spits out one movie every few years. And so you could say all the more reason for a flashback, but at the same time, if you're here to watch the eighth Mission Impossible movie, unless you're Dan, what are the chances you haven't seen the other
Well,
seven?
that's one thing I wanted to put out too, is that when I went to the movie theater, so I originally said I had it to myself, and I do apologize if we're lagging a little bit. It looks like we're starting to lose some pixelation here on my side. But um, when I was sitting there, some folks did come in, and they all seemed like older audience members. And I know you went to the theater as well, and I was just curious, like, did you see more of a younger demographic? Was it about your age? Was it older? Just who was going to see this?
It was a mix. But it was definitely more, I would say between my age and older. There was not a younger crowd. There weren't teens and there weren't, obviously kids really. It was more people in their 30s and 40s and 50s. And I went during the day, so there wasn't a ton of people there. I like to I personally prefer, if it's just me, I'm going to go to the movies during the day because it's less crowded. I have more space. I can more than likely get a seat to myself. That's just a personal thing. So there's not a whole lot of people in my theater
That's
usually.
that's something to point out with Matt. If you ever end up in a movie theater with Matthew and he's there by himself, you should pick the seat directly next to him and just just make sure that you're present because he really does enjoy that. Just throwing that out.
But no, I mean, I don't. So killing Luther was a choice. I didn't hate it, but I didn't understand why it had to happen other than, oh, it's the last movie. Let's kill off someone who's been in every single movie. Like Luther has been there every single one. And it just didn't make sense to me, and it didn't make sense why he was sick, and it didn't make sense why they didn't explain it. It just was kind of like, oh, we're kicking off with a bang. Let's kill a major character. Boom. And but why? And why did you have to do it in a why was he in a hospital bed and why was he, if you're gonna do all that, explain it. Make
He
it
did,
make
yeah, you could have killed it. Would probably would have been better if they had killed him off and he wasn't sick.
Yeah,
Like it might have, because you're almost led to believe, like, well, maybe he was terminally ill and he was getting to the end and it was just a sacrifice he was willing to make at that point. Like, I feel like it would have probably stuck with the audience more if that just didn't exist. Like, he could still be working on the tech to hack into the entity and all this other. Like, it didn't need to play out that way at all.
right. So I mean, but yeah, my biggest gripe was that the movie took forever to get going, but to start moving forward with the story. Once it did, it's in the top as far as best Mission Impossible films. But it's that first hour, an hour and a half, man, that just I think brings this way, way down. We joke about the bathroom meter and how is it score on 3 hours is a long time, but there's been plenty of 3 hour movies that I've watched that have flown by and don't feel like 3 hours. And I'll say the last hour and a half of this flew by. Didn't even feel it. But that first hour and a half, oh my God, dude. I was so ready to get out of that chair. Like it just was boring. It was boring and nothing was happening other than, oh, let's flash back to this moment. Let's flash back to that moment. Let's flash back to this moment. And I just think it's just such a weird choice. And I get why they did it, but I feel like it could have been done better somehow. I don't know how. I'm not gonna I'm gonna be honest in the front. I don't know how they could have done it better, but it could have been done better. Well,
Um,
um,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, should we wrap this up with some star ratings?
Sure. You mind if I go first and you can wrap us
Absolutely,
up?
absolutely.
Sure. So I think overall, looking at the final reckoning that I'm going to give the final reckoning is 3.5 out of 5 stars, which will bring it to about 70%. Overall, I went to the movies. I expected an action movie. I got an action movie. I saw Tom Cruise do stunts. It was Mission Impossible. All the elements were there, but I do agree the length of the film, even for someone who didn't see a lot of the parts, probably could have done without a lot of the flashbacks. And um, overall, just a solid movie. I did enjoy it, which I was surprised about. So, would recommend if you haven't gone to see it, go take a trip to the theater. So, Matt, that turns us over to you. Where are you at?
Yeah, this is absolutely one you should see in the theater. I think all the Mission Impossible films are, if you have the opportunity, watch it in the theater. I think they're just best that way. Um, but I am also 3.5 stars out of 5 with this. It's a good movie. I'm not going to say it's not. It's a good Mission Impossible movie, but it's kind of middle of the road as far as the franchise is concerned. So, um, you know, I'm not going to do a Mission Impossible ranking right now, but this would fall lower on the list rather than higher for me.
Yeah, I'm also not 100% sold on the fact that this is going to be the last Mission Impossible movie.
It does seem kind of, I mean, it was a good send off. Like if it is, then I'm at peace with it. But it does kind of seem like the door is very much still open for more impossible missions. At one point, Tom Cruise said that this was going to be it as far as Mission Impossible was concerned. And then at another point, he said he was going to do this uh, until he could no longer do it. And talking about Mission Impossible. And then he's since gone on to say, well, I'm going to do movies and acting and action movies and drama and all these other movies. I'm going to be an actor until I'm 100. Um, so I mean, good for him if if he lives that long and can do it. I mean, Clint Eastwood is just turning 95 or something here soon and has just announced that he's directing another movie. So I mean, these these legends, these people that we grew up with, these people of yesteryear, almost Hollywood, still bringing their A game is still, you know. being a presence and a force to reckon with in Hollywood is I'm all here for it. So give me if there is more Mission Impossible, I'll watch it. Um, but I think Tom Cruise has solidified his name in that I'll watch anything he does now.
And I think we're getting to a point though with the Mission Impossible franchise that they should probably change it to the Mission Probable. Like
Yeah,
we're getting to the point they're probably going to get it done.
yeah, most
Um,
likely.
but yeah, I 100% agree with you on this. I would 100% go see this in the movie theater. It's just something about action films having the explosions around you, the sounds of helicopters or airplanes, whatever the case may be. It's an experience, and you get that with this. So I do thank you for tuning in with us today. As far as picture this film review, sorry we were a little bit behind due to my illness. You can hear my wife in the background also coughing with me, so we're all sick and have been sick around the house. So, but hopefully you're not sick. And I was well when I went to the movie theaters. I do want to put that out as well. So, but guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us. If you do want to converse with us on the YouTube videos, we do have the comment section down below. Leave a like. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you like to turn in to more movie reviews with us, whether they're older, newer, in the theater, just out of the theater, sometimes just a random film that we happen across that maybe we didn't even know existed until one of us saw it. So you never know. So Matt, if you're going to follow us on social media, where can you find us these days?
Well, you're hopefully watching us at youtube.com/picture this film reviews. And then you can follow us on Instagram. That is at picture this reviews. Make sure you subscribe there. And like Dan said, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, if you agree with us or disagree. Um, Also, let us know what you'd like to hear us talk about. If there's a movie that we haven't covered yet, let us know. We will probably listen to you and then cover it. Uh, so, Dan, that wraps it up. Unless you got any final words.
Just if you happen to be out and about and one day you find me or Matt at the movie theater, come watch a movie with us. We'd love to have you and watch it with you, get some popcorn, get some drinks, some snacks, and dial in. But Mr. Matt, you can go ahead and sign us out.
Amen. Everybody, have a great week and love one another.